Welcome back. It's the other big story for this Tuesday. The case against two siblings arrested in eSwatini in connection with the murder of rapper Kiernan, aka Forbes, and his friend Tebello, Tibz Motsoane, has now been postponed to the 20th of March. That's next week. The pair appeared before the Manzini Magistrate Court this morning. The Ndimande brothers, that's Siyabonga and Malusi, were arrested in the eSwatini capital, Mbabane, 3 weeks ago after South African police issued a red notice. Our reporter Nhlanhla Jele is part of our team that's keeping up with proceedings, and she joins us now live from eSwatini. And Nhlanhla, we're starting to sound like broken records. Yet another postponement. This time it's because South Africa hasn't finally submitted that extradition application. But do we know why South Africa hasn't done that yet?
Good morning to you, Ayanda, and to our viewers at home. Indeed, we are starting to sound like broken records, postponement after postponement. However, it was not made clear why South Africa has not filed the formal application, but we do know, as the state prosecutor, Nhlanhla, made submissions in court this morning, that they still have time. Remember, it takes 30 days for them to file this extradition application, so they are still within their time. We know that from today until the 27th, they have about 2 weeks to file this official or comprehensive extradition application process. So that's what we know so far, that it still has not been filed. The matter has been postponed to next week on the 20th, where hopefully by then it would have been filed by South Africa. However, they did not make mention of the fact why it has not been filed up to today. But we do know that another issue that was brought up in court by the state prosecutor Nhlanhla was that the issue of the detaining of the cell phones. Remember last week when he made an application to have these cell phones detained and sent to South Africa as part of the evidence for the case that they are charged with in South Africa. Their defense lawyer Ngwenya refused or opposed their application. The same happened this morning in court, where we had Ngwenya opposing that application, saying that they must just do it together with the full comprehensive extradition application, because we don't know what is going to be contained in that application process that is expected to be filed by South Africa between today and the 27th. Remember, they have a month, and the suspects were arrested on the 27th of February this year. So on the 27th of March this year, it makes it a full month. I asked him on the side whether or not if he can tell us what's going to happen if the 27th comes and the application is still not being filed by South Africa. Unfortunately, he could not give me an answer in that regard, but we do know that we're still waiting for the formal application. And for now, the cell phones are detained provisionally, as it had been already applied for by the state. Remember, they are still also arrested under the provisional extradition application. So we are waiting for the 27th to see, and next week rather, the 20th, to see whether or not South Africa's National Director of Public Prosecutions would have filed that formal extradition application. Ayanda?
Yeah, and it's been very interesting to hear, Nhlanhla, this question around whether or not the suspects will be prejudiced by the keeping of these cell phones. Take us through what the argument there was, because it seems to have featured very prominently around whether or not these cell phones should be kept whilst we wait for this extradition.
True, Ayanda. The magistrate did come up and say whether the cell phones are detained or not detained, it's not going to affect them, whether directly or indirectly, and made mention of the fact that them detaining the cell phones also is part of this whole process. Remember, these cell phones are linked to the charges that they are wanted for back in South Africa. So that's why he said for now he's going to keep the application to have them detained provisionally until next week when we come back to court, where hopefully they'll deal more with this issue of the cell phones, whether or not they are detaining them. Remember, also Ngwenya said that the issue of following proper procedures when it comes to such issues. Remember last week when this application was initially made to have the cell phones detained, a formal affidavit was not filed or sent through to the defense attorney, Ngwenya rather. So those are some of the things that we've been hearing, and he says that the reason that he's opposing to have the cell phones detained is that we don't know what is contained in the application that is going to be made by South Africa, saying that the state is already sounding like they know what is going to be contained in their application by South Africa to have them back in the country to face these charges. This based on the fact that Nhlanhla, who's the state prosecutor, did say that he doesn't see any bearing as to why the cell phones cannot be detained officially and why they cannot be sent back to South Africa, whether the formal extradition application has been sent or not. So those are some of the things that we heard heard here this morning with Ngwenya opposing this application, saying it sounds as if the state is already preempting, or they have a clue as to what is contained in that extradition application. Hence, the magistrate finally decided or ruled that these cell phones are going to be detained provisionally until next week, where a formal submissions will be made in regard to the issue of cell phones. But for now, that's all we know, that the cell phones remain detained provisionally. The application which the state was trying to make last week and today has not been officially and formally dealt with. Ayanda?
Yeah, and until the 27th, I suppose, Nhlanhla, you, me, the rest of the country continue to wait. Thanks very much indeed for that reporting and those details. Nhlanhla Jele, live to us there from just outside the Manzini Magistrate Court, that's in eSwatini. The case involving 2 suspects arrested in connection with the killing of AKA and Tibz suspects, postponed, I beg your pardon, to next week. All right, before I run out of my words, let me say my goodbye. Thanks as always for choosing the SABC News channel. The day's big stories continue on Point and SA Today. I'll see you tomorrow at 9. Take care.